Hi guys! My name is Miss Jackson. I teach at Fairfax High School. I'm a science teacher, and I want to share a story with you today to see maybe if you can become a part of our story. We have a student at Fairfax High School. His name is Jose Cholan, and I've known him for 3 years. He's a really great kid. He's really shy, very sweet, very happy. In the 3 years that I've known him, I've never seen him sad. He's the kind of kid that walks in and says good morning every day. But in January, he was on his way to the doctor because he was getting some back pain. And on his way to the doctor, he lost all feeling in his legs. And so his mom freaked out and pulled over and called 911. And when he was rushed to the hospital, he was diagnosed with a blood clot. And he came out of surgery and is now paralyzed and is a quadriplegic. I talked to my brother who's a firefighter, and apparently blood clots are pretty common, but his kind of blood clot on the neck, over the spine, is a really, really rare case. And so he is an extreme case. When we heard about the story, there was a note in my box when we heard the story, we got together with a bunch of teachers and we went to go visit him. He was on a respirator because he couldn't breathe on his own. He could kind of move his eyebrows and answer your questions through his eyebrows. Since then, he's become a lot more medically stable. He has a permanent trach put into his throat. So if you guys have seen like the smoking commercials where they have a hole in their throat, so he has his trach, his stoma, he has a stoma, and whenever he wants to talk, he has to swallow air and talk to you. During the daytime, he can breathe on his own, but at nighttime, he's on a respirator, and he needs a little bit of help breathing. He's raised by a single mom, and he has 3 siblings, and they live on the 2nd floor of a Hollywood apartment that's rent controlled. And the big deal right now is that even though he's medically stable, the rehab center cannot release him because he has no home to go to, and because his 2nd floor home is not accessible. And when I came back to school, and I told my students about this story, they were really moved by the story, and they wanted to, sorry about the motorcycle. Oh wait. I told my students about the story, and they were really moved, and they wanted to help Jose. They wanted to help Jose raise money to get the family back on their feet, to move away from their apartment and find a better apartment somewhere. And the kids started pulling out their money. And I said, kids, just wait. Let me get this organized. Let me go get a box. Let me decorate it. And they're like, no, Miss Jackson, we need to give money right now. And they started pulling out their dollar bills. They started pulling out change. Somebody found a cup, a plastic cup. We started passing it around the room. And at the end of the period, we had raised maybe $40 from this one period. And it has moved from that into boxes. Maybe the first week we raised about $2,000. These are all just kids putting their own dollar bills into the box. A student had an idea that we could make buttons. So we started making buttons. We started selling those. Another student had an idea to sell croissants. So we started selling croissants. And the next week we had another $2,000. The week after that we had another $2,000. And pretty soon we were at about the $9,000 mark. These are all private donations and kids raising money, kids putting their own dollars in. It's all these kids that, most of them who did not even know Jose. This is a shy student. Somebody asked me, was Jose a popular kid? He must have had a lot of friends helping him because they're all helping him. And I said, no, he's actually a very shy student. Very few people knew him. And so all these kids that are helping him are helping just because they understand that a kid needs help. Another Fairfax Lion needs help. The fundraising efforts got so big that Steve Lopez of the Los Angeles Times got wind of it and started knocking on the doors of Fairfax High School. He showed up at school. He wanted to write a story about Jose and about all these students that had come to the aid. So he wrote an article on Wednesday, and it came out in the newspaper on Thursday, and within a 24-hour period, we had about 150 letters sent to Fairfax High School that all had checks and donations and money and cards and letters of encouragement and hope. And I want to say we raised about an additional $7,000 just from donations. So at that point we were at $15,000. And some kid came up and asked me, Ms. Jackson, what is it you think about this story that was so touching to other people? Because every day you watch TV, and every day there's some cause. Right? Everybody always needs help. There are people that are losing their homes, and there are children that have cancer, and there are dogs that need rescuing, and elderly that need help, and students that need to raise money for college. And there's always some cause. that needs help. So what is it about this special case that caused people, when they read this article, everybody thought, oh my gosh, I want to help and I want to put money in. And for me, I think the reason why so many people have donated so much money is because they read this article not so much about a student that is paralyzed, because really there's a lot of students that are paralyzed everywhere. There are children that need help. But it is a student that is paralyzed, that is a good kid, that was going to college, that cared about his education. And it's about all of these students, all about these teenagers that came to the aid of the student that they didn't even know. And I think the most heartwarming part of it is this, that these teenagers that sometimes the public doesn't take seriously, sometimes they get into trouble, and sometimes they're loud, and sometimes they don't take life seriously or education seriously. These teenagers have all rallied together and have found ways to have compassion and kindness, and they're giving up their own dollar bills, they're telling the story to other people, and they're bringing other people to the story. I think that is what has been so heartwarming, and that is the reason why people read the article and said, not only, oh my goodness, this is a great story, but oh my goodness, this is a great story, I want to contribute. If these kids can pull out their own dollar bills, I want to pull out my checkbook and write a check so I can help Jose, help his family, and help these students. And we've gotten a huge response from all different kinds of people, and I think that has been an amazing lesson, not only for these students, but for me as an educator. We've gotten letters from really poor people. I got a letter the other day, and it was a blank envelope, and it had $3 bills in it. So if you can imagine what it took for this person to put $3 in this envelope and send it. And they didn't include a name. It was totally anonymous, and maybe they were a little bit embarrassed about the amount. But for somebody to send that amount, can you imagine what it took, like, from the heart? I got another note from an 8-year-old kid. An 8-year-old! What 8-year-old finds money and sends it to LA Times? I got a letter. This little girl found a $20 bill in the parking lot, and she had been discussing Jose with her grandmother, and she took this $20 bill and gave it to their grandmother and said, I want to send this to Jose. And she wrote a little letter that said, I'm 8 years old, I read about you in the newspaper, you're so brave, and you have so much courage for going through what you're going through. I know that you have a lot of friends that love you and care about you. And that's really sweet, not only because it's coming from an 8-year-old, but because she's talking about his friends. And really, he didn't have so many friends because he was shy, but now he's got friends all over the world. He has friends that are 8 years old. He has friends that are poor. He has friends that are rich. He has friends that are 88 years old. I got a letter from an 88-year-old grandmother who wanted to contribute. I have a lot of letters coming in from people that have graduated from Fairfax High School. So they read this article about a fellow lion that is in trouble. And so they wrote in, and they wrote some pretty big checks because it's a community and because it's a generation of lions. I think the oldest one we got was 1935, class of 1935. So this guy who had graduated back in 1935 is reading an article about you guys who are helping this lion, and they want to help also. I've gotten checks from other high schools, Catholic high schools, Jewish high schools. They took it on as a fundraiser at their own high school. They don't even know Jose. They don't even know us. All they know is that another kid needs our help, another teenager needs our help, and they did a fundraiser, and they raised $1,000, they raised $100, they wrote letters to him, and they wrote good positive thoughts so that Jose can read it and feel encouraged. I've gotten letters from people that live in Japan. It's the farthest letter that I got. I got a check from Massachusetts. I've got them all over the community. So this is amazing that our kids, that you guys can come to the aid of this one student, and that because of you guys coming to the aid of this one student, you have inspired the community to come and help you help Jose. And it's unbelievable how little prejudice there is, how much tolerance there is. No one cares what kind of race Jose is, and no one cares how old he is, how rich he was, how poor he was. No one cares whether he was a Catholic or a Jew. No one cares. All people care about is that there is this person